Welcome to the third annual online fall graduate school fair hosted by the AMS. We thank you all for tuning in and extend a special thank you to our faculty and student panelists for being with us today in support of this event. My name is Sarah Bryant, and I'm a mathematician and the director of programs at the AMS. I'm really excited about this event because when I was a graduate student transitioning from Berea College, a small liberal arts college, to Purdue University, a large PhD granting university, I was sometimes lost. And I don't think I asked all the questions I could have asked when I was on my journey of finding a good fit. So today, we're going to help you with that. I'll be speaking with Dr. Julia Hartmann, Dr. Jennifer Hom, and Dr. Kasso Okoudjou, who will provide their insights and expertise on the graduate school search program from their perspective as faculty members and former graduate students. A little bit more about them. Dr. Julia Hartmann is the Fay R. and Eugene L. Langberg Professor in Mathematics at the University of Pennsylvania, working in algebra and related areas. She has been involved in graduate admissions for many years as graduate admissions chair and chair of the graduate program. Additionally, Dr. Hartmann runs workshops for undergraduates thinking about applying to mathematical sciences graduate programs. Dr. Jennifer Hom grew up in Massachusetts watching Square One TV. Same. She's currently a professor at Georgia Tech. Her research centers on low-dimensional topology and Heigard floor homology, and she spoke in the topology section of the 2022 ICM. Very big honor. We're looking forward to the 2026 ICM soon. Dr. Hom enjoys running and board games. Dr. Kasso Okoudjou is a professor of mathematics at Tufts University. His research interests lie in applied and computational harmonic analysis and analysis on fractals, everyone's favorite math shape. He earned his PhD in mathematics from Georgia Tech in 2003. He's held positions at Cornell University, University of Maryland College Park, Technical University of Berlin, and MIT, among others. We are also very pleased that 3 current graduate students are joining today's panel. Jakini Kauba, Lucy Martinez, and Connor Parrow, who will be providing their own insight and wisdom from, in the trenches. Jakini is a third-year PhD student in computational biology and stochastic processes at Clemson University. With a passion for quantitative justice, she aims to serve our many underrepresented communities in an effort to make our nation more equitable for all who reside in it. Lucy received her Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from Stockton University in May 2021. She is currently a 4th-year PhD candidate at Rutgers University, where her PhD research is funded by the NSF GRFP. Learn more about that in the links below. Her research interests are in experimental mathematics and combinatorics. Connor is a 3rd-year PhD student in the Applied and Computational Mathematics and Statistics Department at University of Notre Dame, with research interests in numerical analysis of fluid structure interaction problems. Welcome to all our panelists, and thank you for taking the time to be here today. Students watching this panel, we hope that our conversation will provide you with ideas on how to frame your questions as you approach your own graduate school search, as you connect with graduate programs at this AMS online fair or other interactions with graduate program representatives. So here's the first one. It's really the big question. What should someone consider when they're deciding to apply to graduate school in the first place? What should they be thinking about in their programs? All right, Dr. Hartmann, hi.
I think what they should consider is various aspects of what they really want out of a graduate program. For example, just to give one thing, if they've already decided what kind of area they want to work in, they should pick a graduate program where they have at least 2 faculty in that area, where they have other faculty working in related areas, and with his current graduate students working in the area that you want to work in. On the other hand, if you haven't yet decided on an area, then maybe it's more important to consider programs that have a greater area diversity, that do not require immediate specialization, and maybe a program that in the beginning lets you take a lot of classes, that offers a lot of seminars routinely, also offers advanced graduate classes. And the course requirements, for example, differ very much between various graduate programs. So those are all things to consider, I think.
Yeah, so that's a lot. That's thinking about what you might ultimately specialize in and looking at the kind of class requirements. Other thoughts about things that people should consider? Jakini, hi.
Hi. I would also say um, finding things outside of the graduate program that you're going to enjoy at that school. So it's a really difficult degree, as we can all attest to. And so there are going to be times where you need to get away, you need to escape, you need to breathe, you just need to do something that's going to rejuvenate you to come back, take a break or whatever. And so whether that's having the opportunity to go hiking or your favorite restaurant, or having the opportunity to hear live music or whatever self-care you enjoy or you think you might enjoy, having that as an outlet at your particular school will be helpful. Because if you don't have that and you need to just step away for a second and you don't feel that you have an outlet and you're stuck in whatever space you're in, it can be a little daunting. So finding that community of friends or colleagues or just something that you can do outside of the graduate program to maintain that balance, I think is very helpful.
I appreciate that. That sense of balance that you're not just going to a program, you're also landing somewhere in space, right? A town, a city, a state, and there's opportunities nearby. Yes, Kasso.
Yeah, so I think students should also think about like the requirement of the program. Most of these things are online today, so taking time just to sort of see what's the qualifying exam system like, how many time, how much time I have to sort of take the exam, have I written exam and time to candidacy. And are you allowed to sort of take the exam on your first try? So those small things, I think it's better to sort of compare them before you actually engage in the PhD program and to know what you're going to be up to when you get there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned doing that research. We have some AMS tools that can help students as they do research into the things that are available at a different program or what sort of structures they have. You can go to the AMS Find Graduate Programs landing page to find out a lot. Okay, that's great. Thank you all so much. Let's think about some other aspects here. So I want to hear from everyone. Everyone here has gone to graduate school. So this is a question for everyone. I want you to think about what are the 3 things that you should look for, like the details that you'd be looking for. If you were to say, look, there's 3 big things you need to look for. We've talked about some of the ways you're going to make decisions, but what would be your top 3 elements to look for in a program?
I think for me, number 1 would be talking to the grad students, seeing what their like quality of life is, like whether they're actually happy. Number 2, I think like figuring out not just like how much you're gonna make as a grad student, but like how many like TA hours and how much like the cost of living is. Because you might have a higher stipend one place, but like high cost of living, and a lower one, but a lower cost of living. So you have to kind of weigh both of those options. And then third, I think like the overall like campus support system, like whether there's good like mental health resources, good career services, good alumni network, as well.
Right. Jen.
I guess maybe the first thing is sort of like a meta answer is just think about like what's important to you. So like for me, like I like living in cities, and so like maybe that like limited my like where I applied. I only applied to graduate schools that are in sort of bigger, more urban areas. But if that's not important to you, then like don't worry about. Yeah, what Julia said about having multiple faculty who are doing research in the area that you're interested in, I think is important. I did not follow that advice when I was in graduate school. So I ended up having an advisor who was at a different school, and I think it worked out, and maybe I wouldn't recommend that to people like to go into graduate school with that as a plan. But if you don't plan, then things can work out also. And then I think also like talk to graduate students, see if they're happy, see if they seem overworked or if they seem excited about math while they're there.
That's great. Yeah, Julia.
Yeah, I have to say this with a grain of salt because I did actually not go to grad school in the US. I moved here from Germany about 10 years ago. So just so that, but I think the structure there is different, but some of the considerations are very similar. So for me, the top sort of meta thing, to follow Jen's example, is to just think about how much good work can you do in a place and in a specific environment. And that might entail very different things that are important to you. And that's what Jen was also saying. Think about what is important to you. So for me personally, it was very important to see what the atmosphere is in the department, not just among graduate students, but also among faculty, how many people you would feel comfortable talking with. So if you get a chance to visit various departments, that's always a good way of finding out about that. Also, how much support you can find. And I don't just mean support in, issues that might arise, but just in general, how much support is already built into the program that can help you with the transition from an undergraduate student to a graduate student. So do they have a pre-thesis advising program? Do they pair new graduate students up with existing graduate students to help you get to know people in higher years? Those kinds of things. And then the third thing I think is really also important is the livability of the place. What type of environment, what type of city, big city, small city, but also maybe even things like the weather, what type of a person are you? Because if you're not happy, then you can't do good work.
Yeah, Kasso.
Yeah, so like Julia, I came to the US to do my graduate studies. So I moved from Benin, and it was a different system. So some of the things that Julia said, and especially Jakini said at the beginning, the living condition, that was quite nice because two of my friends had from Benin with whom I went to undergraduate happened to have already been accepted to Georgia Tech. So it was easy to transition, sort of find people that I know. And then the other thing is have an idea of what you want to do. Yes, you want to keep your option open, but it was important for me to sort of know that I want to do something related to analysis, which I felt like that always something I wanted to do. So I would have maybe been happier if I were at a place where most of the faculty are specialized in algebra or something related to that. So I think that was a second important thing for me. And the third thing is to make sure to enjoy the moment. I mean, I knew I was in for at least 5 years, and so being prepared mentally that they're going to be up and down, but making sure that you have a way to know how to persevere whenever things that sort of come into your way. So it's sort of related to life beside mathematics, essentially.
Wonderful. Lucy, I don't think we've heard from you yet. What would be some of your top considerations for in a program?
I think it definitely depends on an individual in each of you. So my advice would be to think about what is important for you and what is important to you and what it means for you to identify a supportive graduate program. And some of those topics could be, for example, department culture. So reach out to graduate students to talk about what kind of culture there is. Some people value, for example, the program completion. So like how many students are graduating each year of the ones that enter in that cohort. for me, it was family, so I chose to apply to graduate schools near where my family is from, and that's why I decided to stay in New Jersey. And other questions to ask yourself also would be about healthcare, living, and location as well.
Jakini.
I would say, so I agree with everything that was already mentioned. I've tried to write some things down that were different. And so one of the big ones for me was research interest. So I'm very much interested in interdisciplinary work. And so hearing about students and programs that were studying math, but applying it to other fields outside of math was more of my interest. And so having that representation in my department was something that kind of made me want to apply, just because it's not something that I heard of as often in undergrad or even in my master's program. A lot of interdisciplinary work was pure science, pure math and applied math, and it wasn't as much outside of math. Not that there's anything right or wrong with either form, but that's where my passion lies. And so that was one of them for me. Funding sources, as Connor was saying, if you can find a fellowship, please apply. You never know if they're gonna give it to you. If they're not, if they say no, then nothing changed, right? But apply because fellowships really help. For a lot of graduate students, assistantships are either research or TA-ships. But if you have a fellowship, 9 times out of 10, you don't do anything. You just go to school, and having that extra time, it's heavenly. So I would say funding is another reason that I chose my university. And then last, I would say on the self-care community thing that people have mentioned, in the event that you find there's something that is missing at your department. So I love the Latin dance. I love a good bachata, salsa. And so when I can't find that, I dance with my friends, or I'll travel to Charlotte or Atlanta, but I have that option because they're 2 hours away and I know people in those cities, so I can go from time to time. But also, if I'm just really missing Dominican food, I'll try to learn how to make it, look up spices, look up recipes, or, if there's some part of some other culture that you're trying to embrace that you don't see present, try to recreate it in a way that allows you to have a piece of it at the very least, without having, because there's no perfect place to get your degree. And so if you can pull pieces from every little thing as much as possible to create a more holistic version for you, then that will be helpful, instead of just saying, oh, well, they don't have what I want here, so I guess, that sucks, and just trying to make the best out of it.
That's great. That's a good point, that we have a lot of agency. Even after you do choose a program, there's a lot that you can bring to it to make that experience as rich as possible. I want to point out that your point about fellowships is a very good one, and we'll make sure to include information available for students about applying to, for example, the NSF graduate research fellowships. So we really want to see more mathematicians applying for these research opportunities because, as you said, it relieves some of the burden that you might experience if you also have to work on the side or even work within a department during your really intense years of studying. I want to dig into something that I heard repeated, which is this theme of getting to understand the quality of life and things about the culture. So it sounds like there may be, I heard, reach out to students. How do you do that? Can a couple people tell me, do they actually do that? Cold call other students, or how do you get to know those things, that unwritten culture stuff?
I can try.
Yeah.
I think it's also about how the department organize a cohort. I remember for me, coming from a country where English was not the first language, I was put in cohort. I mean, it was a big cohort, but there was a sub-cohort, people to familiarize ourselves with the American classroom. So I make some of my best friends in the graduate program, just talking about our different culture. But then all the people who came during our year, I believe they tried to put all of us in the same office, and that actually created like a strong community sense. And so we organized quite a lot of things together, especially for us who were coming here for the first time. We were introduced to many things for that. So, but I think I would not have known how to do this on my own if it was not sort of set up. So these are questions that you might want to sort of ask as you're going into sort of this program. Do they just sort of leave you for your on your own when you come, or is there a sense of sort of cohort that's sort of being built into the program? And those things, you can actually figure them out way before you actually sort of apply for a program or during the visit when you sort of get to sort of choose. So it's important to talk to students to see how they sort of feel together in a given department.
Wonderful. Julia.
Yeah, we've mentioned, talking to students when you visit before. If I understood your question correctly, it was maybe even at an earlier stage. How do you find out about those things before you go to a place, maybe because you've received an offer or you're under consideration or something like that? So you can find a lot of information even about what the graduate students are doing, at least in some places, on the web pages already. But we have actually had students, I have had students email me and just say, oh, I'm in my junior year and I happen to be in town. I really want to come and visit the department. What should I do? And I put them in touch with students to meet, or I tell them when our graduate student seminar is happening and I say, maybe come on that day if you can do it. So I think you can actually cold email people, and the graduate students have their pictures and email addresses on the web pages for most departments. And you can just pick somebody who maybe works in an area that you're interested in or something, and just go ahead and try it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that they don't respond.
Thank you. Jakini.
I would say specifically for students who are still in undergrad, who are curious about graduate programs, when you go to conferences, I'm hoping that you're having the opportunity to go to conferences or network at different dinners or whatever, and you meet other graduate students, even in your own department, asking questions and just talking. Because especially at conferences, there are going to be tables. There are going to be tables with different universities, different professional organizations, even if you're involved in AWM or the AMS chapter at your university. If you're, going to MathFest for NAM, if you have a membership with MAA, there's so many different organizations and ways to connect with individuals that have all been through graduate school or know other graduate students, or can connect you with those graduate students. And because graduate school is just such a daunting experience, every graduate student is willing to talk to you. So if you have any, fears or anxieties, or you just don't know, none of us know. So the idea of, I feel intimidated, or I don't know what to ask, or, I'm not sure what to say, just go for it and just ask anybody, and somebody will lead you to another person, will lead you to another person. You'll have so much information by the time that you finish, because it's better than just not knowing and guessing, right? You don't want to end up in a program that's not meant for you, and you don't want to miss your opportunity of being in the program at all because you were just not sure of yourself. No one's sure of themselves. Even after they get their PhD, a lot of people are giving talks. They're like, yeah, I did the best I could, and so we're all still human beings. We're just doing very difficult work. And so if you just don't know, just try, see what happens. If they don't respond, like it was mentioned before, then they don't respond, email someone else. And I will definitely say, ask as honest questions as you possibly can. Try not to be too politically correct. If it's something that is a concern of yours, ask it as blunt as possible, because then you'll get a blunt response. But if it's kind of wordy and, trying to be safe, then you're going to get a wordy, safe response. So be direct as much as you can, and just go for your dreams.
All right, that's fantastic. That's a really good summary, Jakini. I want to transition to maybe a slightly different question, which has to do with one of the realities when you arrive at a graduate program. And so people may be thinking about it now as they're considering graduate programs. I've heard some advice about looking at the sort of range, breadth of expertise available. But how does someone begin the journey of finding a mentor in a program? And I would hope that happens earlier than finding an advisor. So can some of you speak about that difference between a mentor and an advisor? and how you would go about finding one. Sometimes you've got it all in one person, but that's not to be expected. Anyone want to share a story about finding a mentor and how you can go about finding a mentor as you start?
I think it's important to just, talk to people around the
Mhm.
department. Like a lot of departments have T, and so in math, like T means,
Mhm.
there's a break room, and there's, depending on the department, it might be cookies, it might be cake, it might be there's coffee. And that's a good opportunity to talk to other graduate students in your department and talk to faculty members. For me, it was important to find mentors who I felt comfortable talking with. Like when I was in graduate school, I did not feel comfortable talking to all the faculty members in the department I was at. And so one of my first mentors, she was a postdoc at the time. And I think I didn't really understand the distinction between postdocs and faculty members at that stage. I just sort of thought like there was just all these adults in the department, and they were all like different degrees of scary to talk to. And then this particular postdoc, she was less scary to talk to. And then, yeah, I did a reading course with her. And then she helped me sort of in my journey to find an advisor. Even though, she was a postdoc, so she couldn't be my advisor. Yeah, so, be present in the department, talk to people, go to seminars, get to know people.
I feel, of course, there's a difference between advisor and mentor. And I feel that if you're lucky enough to have both of them in one person, that's a blessing. But if you don't have a mentor in your advisor, it doesn't mean they're not a great advisor. So being able to distinguish between the two, an advisor is the person who's supposed to get you through your program and help you graduate, do your research, you get your PhD. And that is their job. It's a professional relationship. It's somebody who's guiding you through all the systems and how to do that and make sure that you're successful. A mentor is someone that you can go to with maybe some more personal issues, some more concerns that you're having, more of your doubts, fears, anxieties, and worries that will come up, or just things that you want to vent about, or you need guidance on how to navigate this new space that you've entered, or you're not comfortable dealing with this and you need more resources that have nothing to do with your research. Maybe it has to do with classes, or maybe it's something that just you don't feel comfortable talking to your advisor about, because again, when you go to your advisor, it's kind of like going to your boss. It's a little bit more personal than that in a typical system. But if you just want to have someone that you talk to about emotional things or mental things or financial support or community and things of that nature, that would be a mentor. And the way to find the best mentor, which I think is really difficult, is by knowing yourself. So if you know that you're the kind of person that is extremely independent, and does not necessarily like the idea of using resources or asking for help, or you like to do things on your own, then the mentor that you're looking for is somebody that can point you in the direction of resources that don't require people. So if you need financial support, there's a pantry on campus where you can get food, or there's a way to apply for food stamps, or there's a bus system, and that allows you the independence still without having to rely on others. But some mentors might say, oh, ask your friend or talk to your roommate and carpool, right? And so it just depends on who you are, what works for you, and also how you communicate what you need. Because there are a lot of mentors that will just give you everything, or they don't know exactly how to help you because what they think they're doing to help you is not helping. So it's kind of like dating. You have to find the right one, look around for a little bit, but it's okay. And it doesn't have to be in your department. It could be someone outside of your department. It could be someone in one of the professional organizations we mentioned before, right? It could be someone that you met at a conference that you maintain a relationship with, that you have Zoom meetings every other semester or every other month or whatever. And it's just somebody that can serve as a confidant, as a support system for you as you get through this program.
Okay, that's great. Does anyone else want to share any insights into how they developed a mentor relationship, or what they recommend for others doing the same? I would say, to pick up a little bit on some of the things you said, Jakini, it's not only would be a blessing to get a mentor and an advisor to the same person, but really to have one mentor who could serve maybe all of the various things that come up. And so the better model once you get to know yourself is probably to develop several mentors, right? So they could be peers who you can turn to, but it could also be, that this person is the person to go to about, this course, and this other person's the person who can help with some of the social difficulties you're facing, and to recognize, your needs and their strengths and put them together so that you've built yourself like a really good network. My mentoring network has changed a lot over my life, and it's not that person who was a fantastic mentor is now like any worse of a person. They were fantastic, and they served me very well when I had some certain needs at a certain time, and now our relationship has changed, and so I'm not relying on them as a mentor. So think of it as very, very dynamic, and something that you would look for in a multi-pronged way. That's my take. All right. I wanted to ask, so just by a show of hands, if you're willing to be vulnerable, how many of you, and I'll get mine ready, had a tough time with the transition, felt really strong in undergrad perhaps, but had a really tough time with the transition stage to graduate school? I don't know that you have to raise your hands. Okay, so this is a particular point, right? And Lucy was saying earlier something about maybe important to someone to know about completion rates. I think that is probably something I would see if you can find data on, because in some schools, I think they bring in a lot more people than they expect to leave, and that transition is maybe harder than it needs to be. But Kasso was describing a model where, a program intentionally built cohorts and intentionally supported particular needs of students. I myself went through a transition type program called the EDGE program that I went to the summer between undergraduate school and graduate school, which expanded my mentor network, strengthened some of my math skills, sharpened my math tools. But more than anything, gave me some of the real reality of what I was about to experience. And I think without that, then I might not even be the person on this screen. So not only would my hand have been higher, but I would have had maybe not a successful transition. So I wanted to see if any of you have had an experience with a formal or informal, like bridge program, something that helped with that transition, and if you would like or be willing to talk about the support or the program you relied on to help with the change from undergrad to graduate school.
So I can start. So my journey is so when I finished my undergraduate, I actually was a math teacher in a high school for 2 years. So when I applied to go to Georgia Tech, I haven't done any serious math for 2 years. And so, and then you put on top of that the language, and it was a very hard first semester. Eventually, I adjusted because two of my friends were ahead of me, so that the support system was important. But I want to fast forward what I've seen, which has been very successful.
Yeah.
And when I became faculty at the University of Maryland, and the department used to have something which we call a boot camp. And they will bring students in who are able to come. It's not mandatory. It was completely voluntary, but they will pay you to come about a month before the beginning of the semester. And they'll sort of give you sort of a crash course on analysis, algebra, topology. Many people who just need a little bit refresher were able to sort of pass a qualifying exam on the first try that fall. And then it helped a lot of people to sort of face like the first class in graduate school very well. So that was a very interesting model, but it's also, it needs like a sustained attention from the department because it's resource consuming. You're talking about being able to find a faculty who is going to spend about part of a summer to sort of be willing to do this. And unfortunately, the program was not, we were not able to sustain the program for the end, but it was a very, very good program that sort of helped a lot of people sort of get through like the first few months of graduate school.
Like Sarah, I did EDGE, before I started my first year in graduate school. So this program is a month long, and it's for women and gender minorities who are about to start their first year or just finished their first year in math or applied math grad school. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I got from Edge is the community it puts you in. So I have a lot of really good network, and like a lot of people I know I can reach out to. And I can reach out to my cohort through our like group message and be like, this happened with my advisor. Do they hate me? Or like, this is happening. My cohort, how do I get them to like do fun things on the weekends and like stuff like that. So it was really good to help me transition that way. And then also after I finished my undergrad, I went to a small liberal arts school. And Hobart and William Smith has this really cool math intern program. So like I got to stay at the department and be the intern and help TA for like calculus and like differential equations and like stay in the math community, take a couple extra classes, but it gave me a good transitional period before I started my grad school, which was a really great experience as well.
Well, it's interesting to have the transition program be part of the undergraduate experience and not just a program that's the onboarding into graduate school. That's great. Does anyone else have any other models that they've been involved with?
I was a part of Edge also, but then my university had a bridge program similar to what was being discussed before. And it was one where we took algebra and analysis for 5 weeks. It was during the second summer. And then the cohort after me took algebra, analysis, machine learning, and probability theory. And so I think having universities that have those types of programs could be supportive for students who are trying to start, but they want to make sure that they're on the same page as everyone else, and that they're not missing anything and filling in those gaps. But then also a university that evolves, right? One that grows and changes as necessary, because machine learning and AI is huge right now, data analysis. And so finding programs that offer that could be something that's applicable when you're considering applying. Because for my program, it wasn't something that, I mean, we have the option to do it, but they paid us to do it. We got a small stipend to take these classes for free. And I mean, I paid me to go to school and I'll do it for the rest of my life. So it was a no-brainer for me. And that was before the school year started. And, you know, then having assistantships and fellowship money supporting you while you're, I mean, it just made sense. So, but I will say the difference between undergraduate and graduate school is that in undergrad, you're learning things to pass the test. In graduate school, you're learning everything and they test you on what they want to test you on. And so it's very research heavy in the sense, in the way that they teach you. It's not even just the work you're doing, but the way that you're being taught is to be taught like a researcher as well. And that shift is very, I don't know, confusing. It's nothing that you've seen before in undergrad. And so when you get to grad school, it's what is this? But that's the point. That is the question.
Yeah.
So.
Now, it's a good point too that entering into a bridge program is not a statement about your strength as an undergraduate student or your preparation, your preparedness for graduate school. It really is because we're talking about very different cultures, very different expectations, very different kinds of mathematics. And you know, the schools that recognize that and provide some support are probably seeing dividends for that. I remember my big statement about the difference between, or my biggest, I don't know, concern about the difference between undergraduate and graduate school had to do with hours in and output. So in undergrad, I would put, I'd put the hours in, but the output was very predictable. It was like a linear relationship. I knew that I would do these homework or this, and the hours in on the studying, linear relationship with the test. And in graduate school, there were no formulas. It was a random process almost. I could work for 6 hours and have nothing done on my homework. And because I just hadn't figured it out yet, or I could study for 20 and not do what I expected on the test. So there was a really different way to approach the work. And like you said, Jakini, this is really because they're preparing you for a different sort of thing than you're prepared for in undergraduate programs. Right. That's really great. Let's see. I have just a couple more. One question I have, because, you know, it's beautiful outside. I'm reminiscing about a lovely summer we just had here. It's beautiful here. Hopefully where you're at too. And I wonder, tell me a little bit about what graduate students do in the summers. Can you tell me a little bit about what a summer looks like for a graduate student, either at the program you're at now or what you've seen? Lucy, tell us.
Hi, yes. I think it definitely varies from school to school, but for example, it's very standard that, or yeah, it's very standard that grad schools are probably not going to support your summer. So sometimes if you're on a teaching assistant contract where you're the teaching assistant for certain classes, maybe that's how you get paid for 10 months. So usually runs from September to June. If that's the case, depends on the school again when the semesters are for start and end. But typically what grad students do is they either try to get an internship if they're interested in working in industry outside of school, or sometimes they try to see if they have any opportunities in their program, like maybe teaching your first class, but that's more towards your advanced years, of course. But in the first year or the first summer or second summer, maybe you want to focus on studying to pass qualifying exams, and maybe you can look into some other opportunity where it's not going to require you to be as absent as possible. Other students, when they have advisors, so again, this is more towards your later years, they maybe their advisor can fund their summer to do research. Some schools do offer summer funding through a research position in your first summer, but you should definitely ask when you are accepted to these programs, you should ask them if they provide funding for your first summer. And if they do, what kind of funding could it be? So when I was applying, I asked several schools, and different schools told me that they had this summer funding for some students, and that I could do some research in that. So you should definitely ask schools. But once you're in a grad school and you're past your first or second year, then other things that you can do is apply to maybe a job outside of your institution, something like that.
Kasso, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this clearly, as Lucy said, this depends from institution to institution. It also depends, like there's also a difference between graduate student who are foreign student and then student in the US. So
I'm glad you said that. Yes.
This is not uniform at all. Many places I've been at have some sort of support for summer, and I think many places are trying at least to attract students to also maybe offer them as a package that maybe you get support for, maybe not full support, but half support for part of the first summer, or maybe just one full support one summer. There's a lot of teaching going on in the summer too, and many of these are done by at least not necessarily first year graduate student, but probably second year and so forth. I believe, given, I mean, my own point of view with my student and anyone who has approached me to work with me has been, if possible, try to find an internship because the job market in academia is no longer like the traditional thing that we've been thinking about, and there are many positions where you can actually do research. Why sort of, and so I've been sort of encouraging all my students, especially those who have passed candidacy, to seek maybe job over the summer and try to sort of go do something and then come back. First of all, it's probably paying better than what they'll earn as a TA, but it's also giving them like some real life experience that they can use to decide, is academia like what I want to go for? Or do I like this model better? So that's actually an option. But this is an important thing that I feel like as a profession we should address, like how are graduate students being supported during the summer? There is no uniformity, and this is something that we just have to think about.
Thank you, Kasso. Jen.
Yeah. So in addition to like teaching opportunities, at the institutions I've been at, graduate students sometimes have the opportunity to be like a TA for a REU. So if you're interested in teaching after graduate school and that opportunity exists, that's something I've seen people do over the summer. And also summer is the time when there's a lot of conferences, and most math conferences fund your travel. And so that's a good opportunity to learn more math. And there's also some summer school programs, like there's the Park City Math Institute that every summer does a 3-week summer school. Well, they'll cover your travel and your lodging for that. That's something that maybe is common for like later graduate students to do during the summers.
That's great. Yeah, and we have the MRCs through the AMS, which in 2025 will be here in Providence. Pretty exciting. Julia.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I'm very much for the summer experiences, summer programs. I've run an MRC before. That was fantastic. But I want to make a sort of a more general point. I think it's really important for your summers to make a plan and maybe make it early, because this is finally some time where you can decide what you want to do before you have to take your classes, or and if you wait until April or beginning of May or something like that, then a lot of the opportunities are already gone. But even if your institution funds you and you're just planning to use this time for research, finally for some quiet time to do your work, even then I think it's really important to have a plan of what you're going to do, and a little bit of a timeline. I know that that's difficult, and talk to your advisor or your mentors about that and come up with a good plan, because the summer can kind of fly by very quickly, and then you feel like you haven't used the time as well as you would have wanted to.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Julia. The summers absolutely do fly by, and we only have so many of them in the program. And I really appreciated, Kasso, the idea about internships as a really good way to do some exploring for your careers, because again, as you complete graduate school, the hiring landscape, you're not really going to be sure of all of the opportunities available to you. But if you expand your options to include both those teaching positions and other types of mathematical positions that are in what we call at the AMS the begin areas: business, entrepreneurship, government, industry, and nonprofits. So begin umbrella, and we're actually going to be doing more to help see what the AMS can provide by postings on math programs or math jobs, so that students are aware of internship opportunities. I think that's all really great stuff. Okay, before we end on just the final advice, I have one question that I know is burning in the minds of the students attending. I know because I've heard from them over and over again, this question. And so I'm looking to you, faculty, but students, if you happen to know an answer to this, be sure to chime in. The students want to know, okay, I know I'm supposed to be looking for a program, but I want a program to want me. What are they looking for in me that I should make sure to convey so that they do in fact accept me and fund me and support me? So what are the graduate programs looking for in their students? What can help a student stand out as they apply to graduate programs? So I know that question is on the minds of some of our attendees, so I'll throw it out there. Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah.
So we've been talking a little bit about the transition from an undergraduate student to a graduate student, but really what the people on the admissions committee are thinking about is the transition even further, right? When you're getting out of graduate school and you're supposed to be a researcher, and all of that is supposed to happen somehow in 5 years or 6 years, maybe something like that. So anything in your application that can indicate that there's a chance of success for that process to happen, any indication, for example, that you've had any kind of undergraduate research experience, that you sort of know a little bit of what you're getting into, that you have realistic expectations about graduate programs, that the department you're applying to is a good fit for you, and you can somehow make that case that you think it's a good fit. I think these are all really important aspects to consider, and that can make your application stronger, because a lot of the candidates on paper, they kind of all look isomorphic, and we have to sort of, decide who can actually, who can maybe make that transition.
Mm.
And I'll add, I think applications that show who you really are, usually it can be read and then can be seen that so what I'm trying to say is that be truthful. Don't try to sort of if you have some ups and downs, talk about them. Don't always talk about only your success. And take time to sort of, if you're taking time to apply for a school, make sure that you really know the school that you're applying for. There are small things that will sort of trick students, like you read application and then the student is talking about my institution, but really I'm reading that the student is writing about a different place because the student didn't sort of take the time to actually adjust the material to see this. So do a homework to sort of see what the place is that you're considering is, and just be truthful about what you've done, as Julia said, how you've overcome adversity in the past, and that actually, like, I believe, the most important quality in a graduate school. Like you'll have maybe a lot of false start. How do you sort of recover from those? And research experience is good, but not everybody is able to do it everywhere. So if you have one, talk about it, fine. But don't try to make up for that. Don't try to sort of say things that you never actually done. And because today, at least where at my institution, we actually have a Zoom meeting to sort of discuss like our first, like what I call shortlist. And when you start to talk to people, we don't ask them any math questions. We just have like simple conversation, about 20 minutes. And usually within those 20 minutes, you can sort of see whether or not what you read match what you're sort of seeing. And so being truthful and talk about who you are, what you're expecting, and why do you feel like you want to come to this place in the first place. Try to sort of say that don't be generic, because if you're generic, then you're sort of just blending in with everyone else. It will be difficult to single you out.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like Jakini's advice earlier too. Like if you want real answers, then you have to ask real questions. And if you want a school to really want you, let them know who you really are. Lucy.
I just want to give one piece and small advice about what Kasso just said on really researching the university that you're applying to, because when I was applying to grad school, I made this whole Google Doc and I listed every school that I wanted to apply to, along with reasons why I wanted to go to that specific school. I researched what kind of programs they had, seminars, like what kind of groups, and all of that I listed in each of the schools that I applied to so that I could talk about those sort of things in my application. And I looked for like activities, like, so for example, for me, AWM, did they have a chapter? What kind of events did they hold? And other types of communities that you might want to be part of. So really research the school that you want to, and make this a document, be organized about this, and list the reasons why you want to attend to that specifics.
It's really good advice. Jen.
Yeah, I think the application is a great opportunity to share who you are. So, for example, if you had a semester where maybe your grades weren't as good as they usually are, and there's some context for that, the application is the time to sort of share the context for that, so the admission committee can see that what was going on in your life then.
Yeah, I've heard that advice before too. Don't leave something unacknowledged worrying that, oh, I don't want to acknowledge that. It's actually better, especially if there's something that you can talk about related to the context or the outcome or whatnot, that you can address in the letters. Okay, so this is the last question, which is just we've got all sorts of students meeting all sorts of graduate programs, and they're eager to connect. What advice do you have for folks on either side of that table? So advice for the folks there talking about their graduate program, or for the students there to learn more. So I would just like to hear something from everyone, and then we'll be wrapped up.
I'd say come ready with some questions. There's resources out there. The AMS has a blog for professional development, I think, and there is a blog out there that has the specific questions to ask for a grad fair. I don't know if you would be able to
Yeah,
put
we'll
that in the
drop links.
resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the title of this that I'm thinking about is a blog called Bank of RU/grad fair questions. So you can see some questions.
Awesome. Come prepared. Good. All right, Connor, what's your advice?
I think my advice would be to not commit like right away. Like think about it. Like give yourself time to make your decision, ask questions, like absorb the information, sleep on it, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to mentors, and really like give yourself time to make these decisions and time to really weigh your options.
Wonderful. Jakini, what advice do you have?
I would say know your why, know at your core why you want to do this degree, and have an answer. And even if that answer is math seems cool, even if that answer is, I just want to go further and see how far I can go and just kind of explore and figure out some things. It doesn't have to be very, very deep. That's a lot of the intimidating energy that people get. It's like, I've always been a mathematician since I was 2. I was doing mental math and surpassing my peers and skipping grades. No. It doesn't have to be, that serious. If that's your path, that's great. Love that for you. We need those types of mathematicians, right? But just know why you want to do this degree, why you're interested in this research, why you feel that you have an identity in this area, why this is something that's important to you, and feel the freedom to explore that and see how far you take it, but don't feel that it has to define you forever, because there are a lot of mathematicians that are now engineers, or engineers that became mathematicians, or I'm doing research in biology. So also be open to all the ways that you can explore math in different areas, and that it's not likely to ever leave you. So as long as you know why you want to do it, you'll have a reason to get through it, and you'll finish your degree, and it's going to be okay.
All right, thank you. All right, from our faculty, it's your turn. Some advice for the people coming to this event.
I think my advice would be to like keep an open mind about sort of like what your future with math might look like. Like me, I think if I look back at like different stages, I had sort of different ideas about what I wanted to be doing or where I wanted to be doing it. And some of the time it worked out, and some of the time it didn't. And some of the time when I got to the stage that I'd been looking forward to, it like was exactly what I expected. And other times it was like totally different. And like just be open to that, and be open to that. Your goals might change, and that's fine. That's good. I mean, you that's sort of why you try things in life. You try them to see if they're a good fit, and then if they're a good fit, that's great. And if they're not a good fit, you can adapt your path.
I think I agree with the things that have been said, and keep an open mind, keep sort of weigh your options. Like Connor said, get as much information as you can. But in the end, I think trust your gut more than maybe certain other things. More maybe when picking a grad school, in the final decision, trust your gut a bit more than maybe some ranking or something like that, or something that somebody else has told you, or what you think other people expect that you will do. And I mean, that of course relates to what Jakini was saying as well. Know yourself, but you kind of know what you want to do, and get as much information as you can, and then just trust your gut.
Oh, I think I agree with all of that. Being oneself is very important, and there is a school that probably right for you, and there's a school that's probably not right for you. And if you don't let prestige sort of dictate like whether or not you should go to school A or school B. And we want to stretch ourselves, but we should be careful not to overstretch ourselves. And so this is an important advice I'll give anyone who is trying to go to a graduate program. Apply to a bunch of schools. You can push yourself for a few, but at the end, when it comes down to deciding, make sure that you know how much you want to stretch yourself. And finally, for a student, I think I want you to sort of take this as we want you here too. We're really looking forward to having students. With our student, our department will not sort of leave. There is no life here. So really speaking, every department is really sort of looking forward to getting students excited to join the department. And so just sort of be yourself and try to choose wisely at the end. And also, to be fair to other students, I have to say something slightly opposite to what Connor said. I like to know early when a student decides to come to Tufts, for instance, because it sort of affects like a bunch of other people in the pipeline, you know. So I think, yes, those small details, those mechanics, we usually don't talk about it, but they are sort of consequence, like at the end when you know this is a school I'm not going to, but I'm holding on to the last minute to tell them. That's sort of something that you might not want to do necessarily.
It's a good point, and something people may not know because we don't always know how these processes play out behind the scenes. So you're right, limited number of spots, and if you know it's not for you, better to let that go. This has been fantastic. I've heard a lot about quality of life, about authenticity. We know that there are all sorts of questions you can ask about summer support, job placement, and career preparation, about structures that help build a cohort, support community. How do programs help address student needs overall? And we will drop some links to other resources for questions, but it's so good to hear from your own words. And to those folks who are in the event representing programs and thinking about growing their program, you've heard what's important to people. You're hearing from the people who come up and ask you questions. They're communicating what they're looking for and what's on their mind. And it's so keep these things in mind as you continue to grow and evolve. Again, I extend a thank you, a warm thank you to this fabulous panel. It's a great discussion for preparing and empowering our student viewers for the online graduate school fair. To all the students in attendance at the fair, we're very grateful for your participation in this event. I hope you take these points, everything that was raised, into your conversations with the program representatives at the online graduate school fair. And I encourage you to attend our in-person graduate school fair in Seattle, Washington, if you will be at the 2025 Joint Mathematics Meetings. It's definitely the event to be at. Details on all sorts of AMS resources, including resources for undergraduates attending Joint Mathematics Meetings, will be in the description box below. Thanks again for joining us. Appreciate you all.